Welcome to Exoneration Nation podcast. I'm the host, Christopher Scott, and today I have a very special guest. This special guest is Judge Robert Burns. And this is the judge that actually granted me my freedom. Now, how many times do you actually get a chance to sit down with somebody and talk to a person that helped you get your freedom back? And when I walked into his courtroom, I felt a sense of peace just because I felt like the Judge Robert Burns knew that the criminal court system had made a mistake and he wanted to change that mistake and make it right. So today I have him here sitting down with me. I'm going to ask him some real great questions and we're going to have a conversation, and here we go. Judge Burns, I want to thank you for coming out today. Thanks for having you on the show. And what have you been up to?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. When you called me, I said I would love to be here. Delighted to be here. So I'm sorry, your question was what have I been doing lately? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I was the judge of Criminal District Court number 1.
Right.
From January 1 of 2007 until December 31st, 2018.
Right.
So after that 12 years of a criminal district judge, then I got elected to be the Chief Justice of the Court of Appeals here in Dallas. And the Court of Appeals is civil and criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And it covers 6 counties, not just Dallas County. It's also Collin, Grayson, Kaufman, Hunt, and Rockwall counties. So
wow.
I've been busy at the Court of Appeals doing a little bit different kind of work.
Right.
It's about a third of it's criminal instead of 100%.
Right.
When I was judge in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2/3 is civil. So it's appeals. It's different.
Right.
It's very different from being a trial judge.
Right. I'm sure.
It's almost like being back in law school because it's,
oh wow.
Yeah, it's like it's where we work. It's real quiet.
Right.
There's nobody there hardly. It's like working in a law library.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then you don't go on the bench nearly as much.
Oh.
You might go on the bench for 2 or 3 hours,
mm-hmm.
and it would only be one time per week.
Oh wow.
When I was a criminal district judge, it's every day.
Every day.
Every day.
So which one do you favor the most, or do you favor anyone more than the other?
I think I really like being a criminal district judge better.
Right.
Yeah, they're both rewarding and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, to be candid with you, I think I probably like being a criminal district judge. But
okay.
I'm more of a people person. I like to be around.
Right.
And it's kind of isolating being being an appellate judge. You don't see as many people. You don't see as many lawyers.
Right.
So it's different.
Yeah. So when I first, walked into your courtroom, the first thing I noticed, I looked at your face. You had a very fair face.
Very what?
Fair.
Fair.
Like you was a fair person, and it gave me a sense of relief and at ease because I felt like you was one of those judges that actually cared about what happened to the individuals that not only appeared in your courtroom that was guilty, but also was willing to sign a paper to give me my freedom. And I wanted to, every time I see you, I want to thank you for it and thank you for doing it for me. And just you doing it has changed my life to make me be the person I am today. So I want to thank you again. And another thing, was I your only ever exoneration in your court building, or did you have another one?
You and Claude were the only two that one day.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised. I mean, that there weren't more out of that court.
Right.
Because I don't know how much I should say.
No, you can say what you want to say.
Let me say it this way.
Right.
Way back in 2005,
mm-hmm.
when a bunch of us lawyers were talking about running for benches.
Right.
People pick different opponents for different reasons, and I picked that opponent, the one that presided over your trial,
mm-hmm.
because I thought, having tried a couple cases in her court as a defense attorney, I thought that she needed an opponent.
Right.
I didn't know anything about your case.
Right.
I just knew that I tried a couple cases in there as a defense lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really frustrating as a defense lawyer at times because it just felt like he or she,
Right.
didn't call balls and strikes quite. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I just had a feeling. But anyway, when you're after your exoneration, your clause exoneration went by, I kind of wondered, and every once in a while, if I saw one of the prosecutors on the elevator, because the elevator that serves that judge's chambers also serves the DA's office.
Right.
It's the same elevator.
Right.
And I would just ask one of them, "Is there anything else coming?" I thought there'd be more.
Right. Me too. I did too.
Out of that court.
Yeah, I did too.
For whatever reason,
it wasn't. I don't know if they hid it well or.
It takes a lot to get a criminal conviction overturned.
Right.
I don't doubt that there were other people innocent that got convicted in the court. And you were very fortunate in the way the evidence was behind your case, that the DA's office was able to show that you were innocent. And other people, they're still there.
I know. Right. I just think at that particular time when Craig Watkins came in, it was just a fresh face, a person that understood how African-American men had been treated in the courtroom, so he could relate to what we was going through.
Yep.
And at that particular time, we actually was sitting in prison on our cell block. And we were saying there's no way that this African-American guy is going to win, not in Dallas County. And when he did, it shocked the whole prison system because we were like, man, we finally got somebody that know the struggle of the courtroom. And it was funny because when he won, it's like the whole prison went up in an uproar like we had won a prison Super Bowl or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because everybody knew we needed somebody in that position that had compassion. Because if you don't have compassion in the courtrooms for the people that's fighting for their freedom, then why are you even sitting up there? You can't be a tough on crime all the time. You know what I mean? You can't always be tough on crime all the time. And it's something about the things you did when you became a judge. So I'm going to ask you a few questions right now. And here's the first one. What differences, if any, are taken into consideration when hearing the case of a law enforcement officer? Is there ever outside political pressure to overturn or not to convict?
When a law enforcement officer is the defendant in a case? I'm trying to remember. I don't think I ever presided over a case. I can think of a case where a police officer was the complaining witness on the case. I don't think I ever presided over a case where the defendant was a police. I prosecuted a police officer one time when I was a prosecutor. He was charged with a DWI offense.
Right.
So I can't personally speak to that, but I would imagine, I was next door to Brandon Birmingham when he tried that. I can't remember the Galt Springs officer's name now.
Yeah, I can't.
He used an assault rifle and killed a 15-year-old kid. I'm sure there's a lot of pressure in the sense that it's a high stakes case,
right?
And there's good lawyers on both sides, and you want to do your dead level best to be fair,
right?
Most judges they don't want to. They really want to
be
go
fair.
Right down the middle,
right?
But the way it is for a judge, though, there's really not most judges. They're just not going to get pressure outside because the lawyers and folks shouldn't be contacting the judge.
Right.
You talk to your court reporter.
Right.
You talk to your court coordinator.
Right.
And that's really the only people you're going to interact with during the trial. So, some judges, maybe if we're only prosecutors, maybe they feel some pressure, just because they're so ingrained in the whole prosecution mindset. But hopefully, a judge is just not going to have. And if I can change the subject for 1 second,
of course,
I want to get this in.
Yeah,
I want to tell you how cool it is to be able to sit here and talk to you because. Obviously, when you got exonerated, we didn't talk.
Right.
And then I've bumped into you at different like
fundraisers and buddies and fundraisers.
But I haven't had a chance to sit down and visit with you about everything that happened. So it's really cool to be here and talking to you just one on one.
I appreciate that very much. I do. I appreciate it very much. And anytime I reached out to you, you always been there. You know what I mean? If I ask you to come to a fundraiser or whatever, you always come. So the feelings are mutual. Like I said, I was so thankful to you for helping me, for signing that piece of paper, not only exonerating me, but actually being an actually innocence case, because that's the highest bar you can get. And that meaning that I was going to be compensated. I could start my whole life over. And if it wasn't for that, it may not be the Christopher Scott I am today, or a House of Renewed Hope organization probably would not even exist, because the money that I got from compensation, I helped fund that organization. So again, I appreciate that as well. So next question is, Judge Benz, have you ever seen any cases of convicted law enforcement officers who were later fully exonerated?
I've not personally, and I'm trying to think of, I can't think of any in Dallas. I'm sure there were some nationally.
Right.
Probably.
Right.
Were. I don't.
For sure.
I'm not really personally aware of any where a police officer got. Police officers tend to have really good representation when they go to trial.
Yeah, and they have immunity.
Yeah, and so I don't know that too many police officers have been wrongfully convicted because the whole process from the investigation and grand jury, through the whole process.
For sure. Yeah.
Somebody that was in your situation, you didn't have representation right from the time that this murder happened, the killing happened, and the other guy did.
Right.
You didn't have representation through the grand jury.
Right.
And then you got a court-appointed lawyer that court-appointed lawyers vary in quality. Right. Whereas a police officer, boom, they get a cop they get a defense lawyer the minute that they've discharged their weapon, basically. So yeah, I don't know that there's been too many police officers wrongfully convicted. I mean, there probably is somewhere. I'm just
Right. So what do you think about officers getting their backgrounds checked thoroughly?
I think different police departments do a better job than others.
Right.
I think it varies. Some do, extensive background checks, and then also maybe psychological background investigations and stuff. And so it just depends. I mean, obviously, I think it's an important tool that cities need to use. Right. I'm sure you're aware. And probably a lot of people that are listening to your podcast are aware of that. Right. Sometimes police officers, they might start off in a big city, have a scrape or two, get discharged,
and go on to another
smaller city. Maybe intentionally or not so intentionally don't do thorough background checks. And so then, this person that really should have been unidentified as maybe a bad apple, they with a gun and a badge again in some small town, and then
So when you didn't run for your re-election here in Dallas County, why didn't you run again?
Well, I drew an opponent. A young lady named Monique Ward decided to run against me. Right. And I thought, well, I'm not so sure that I can beat a woman. As a man, it's hard to beat a woman in Dallas County. Right. And I knew I was kind of towards the end of my career as a judge. I didn't want to be a judge forever and ever. Right. And I thought, well, and some friends talked me into running for the Court of Appeals. And so it was kind of a push-pull thing where, I had this pushing at me and these other folks pulling at me, and hey, run for the Court of Appeals. Right. And so I was like, okay. So.
Yeah, I remember you told me you was like, you didn't know if you was going to win or not. Yeah. That you was just going to run and see what happened. Right. And look what happened. Yeah. Good things happen to good people.
Well, thank you.
You know what I mean? Good things happen to good people, and you one of the good people that I know. So I'm glad that you was able to win that election. So after your first term is over, are you going to run again, or are you going to do anything different?
I've told a lot of friends, and I'll just make it official here since this is going to go out to whoever. But I'm not going to run for re-election. I've got 3 more years of my term. Right. It's a 6-year term at the Court of Appeals.
Right.
I'll be 60 and a half years old at the end of this term. And at that point, I'll have been a judge 18 years.
Wow.
And that's really as long.
A long time, yeah.
Yeah. What I really like doing best now that I'm older and have done these different things in my life, I really enjoyed being a criminal defense lawyer the most of the different hats I've worn over the years. Right. I've been a prosecutor. Right. I was a defense lawyer. Then I was an airline pilot. Oh, then I was a defense lawyer. I had a short career as an airline pilot. I was a defense lawyer for 10 years, and then I was a district judge, trial judge for 12 years. Mm-hmm. And I've been here 3 years, 3 to go. Mm-hmm. Of all the different hats I've worn, being a criminal defense lawyer was the most fun. Okay. It really was, and rewarding. And when I say fun, I mean interesting and fun, but it was also rewarding. This will sound weird probably, and at least to the general public. It won't sound weird to lawyers necessarily, but I found that, for the hard work that I would do for people when I was a defense lawyer, that people that were charged with crimes were the most appreciative of the work that I did for them. Right. I didn't get that at the DA's office. In fact, the last murder case that I handled as a prosecutor, I got a strong verdict. I mean, the jury gave this guy a life sentence. Mm-hmm. And the guy that was the victim of the murder, the mother of his 2 children, she called me and she was mad at me because the jury gave the guy a life sentence, which, they're the ones that made that decision. Right. She thought it got too much, and I was surprised the jury gave the guy that much. Right. I mean, it probably was too much of a punishment. But anyway, but for her to call me up and to chew me out, right? I just busted my tail for the last month on this case. Right. Anyway, but defense people charged with crimes, whether it's an acquittal or as long as you fought for them and they felt like you did a good job. Yeah, it should be enough. They were appreciative generally. Right. There are exceptions, but generally, and so. But it's fun being a defense lawyer. Kind of your own boss. Right. You answer to your client. Right. You just got to make the client happy. Right. You go to different courts. Mm-hmm. You're not just stuck in one court. Right. Right. So all those things kind of, at least for me, made it the most rewarding. And so when I'm done being a judge in 3 years, I want to go back to being a defense lawyer. That's cool. We need a lot of more good defense attorneys out here that's going to really represent their client to the fullest. Seriously, because a lot of time we get defense attorneys that doesn't have that integrity that's gonna, that's gonna support you and fight for you all the way through. So is it harder to defend somebody that's guilty? People have asked me that over the years, and honestly, the hardest is to represent somebody that you think is innocent by far. Right. And the reason why is because you've done all your background work on this case. You've been through all the discovery. You've hopefully a good lawyer has gone to the scene and investigate the scene, and hopefully as a good lawyer you go talk to the witnesses yourself. Right. And so you've developed your own. You've done your own investigation, and I have formed my own opinion that my client really is innocent. Right. That's the pressure. That's the hard case because. The stakes are so much higher for you. At least for me. It's like, I really got to do a good job for this person, Right. Where if it's a guilty person, I would still work every bit as hard. But, if the jury found him guilty, then I didn't necessarily feel so torn up about it. Right. I had some close calls on cases when I was defense lawyer. I don't think I really ever had a truly innocent person get convicted. But, the cases I represented I think he was 19 by the time I went to trial, but he was 17 when he got charged with murder. And I knew that kid was innocent, and I worked so hard on that case. And it was almost a 2-week trial, and the jury was out for 2 days and found him not guilty. But I felt like I aged. Right. Took so much out of you. Yeah, that trial. Right. So I never had the experience of having somebody that I truly believe was innocent found guilty. Now, I did have people that I thought maybe if I'd been more talented, maybe I could have won their case. But I still thought they were guilty, and they were. I mean, I think they were guilty based upon the evidence that I knew. But maybe there was a wrinkle in the case. And I was really trying to trying to work as hard as I could, and it just didn't work out. But I never felt like I had an innocent client convicted. So, but the guilty ones, the ones that you know are guilty,
Right.
And maybe they even sort of admit it when you talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Those you still work hard, and you're trying to get the best deal for that person.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you go to trial, you're trying to get less than what the state offered.
Right.
And so, I had a case one time where the guy, he was guilty of injury to a child, but the state's offer was just ridiculous. It was 50 years aggravated.
Wow.
And I was representing the father of a child, and the mother of a child was represented by Donna Winfield. And we went to trial, and we got 9 years non-aggravated.
Wow.
It really was
right.
The jury did the right thing.
Right.
So that was a hard case. And he was guilty, but just not nearly as guilty
as what they claim to be.
That's right.
See, when we need defense attorneys like that, because a lot of defense attorneys would have just thrown him away to the dogs that wouldn't even care about, they feel like, this crime doesn't seek this kind of punishment.
I think it was the first year I was on the bench as a trial judge. We tried a pretty bad rape case, sexual assault case. The young man was guilty. I mean, he was guilty. There was overwhelming evidence. Anyway, we had the trial, and the jury gave this young kid, I think he was 18 or 19, life in prison, which a little bit more than than I felt comfortable with. But you could still see a jury giving him a substantial amount of time. Anyway, I go back, like I always did, is I would go back, I would discharge a jury, I'd go back in the jury room, close the door, and I would give the jurors the chance to talk to me alone.
Right.
Anyway, I go in, close the door, and a juror comes up to me by the door immediately, and she just goes, that defense lawyer, the guy was guilty. There's just no question. That defense lawyer didn't do a damn thing for that kid. I don't appreciate, as a juror, she was mad about it.
Right.
And I was too. I didn't really say that to her. If she's listening to this,
but
I just kind of stood there like, what do you say as a judge? But what I did as a judge is I never pointed that lawyer on a case ever again.
Wow.
12 years.
That was good.
Because, there are.
Yeah. So when you get a jury member that doesn't agree with the verdict, does that have any leniency as towards his appeal? Because now he probably can get somebody off the jury panel to say, I don't think, or whatever.
That's a good question. And unfortunately, depending on your point of view, I guess, or depending on what happened with the juror, there's a really strict rule of evidence that says that jurors can't be called to the witness stand after a trial. There's only really, really limited circumstances that you can get a kind of a reluctant juror to say, well, it's nearly impossible.
Like, the reason I asked it because I was locked up with a guy that a jury member wrote the Dallas Morning News and told him, like, hey, I don't think this guy actually committed the crime. I had a problem with it. And they got that guy exonerated.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it because when we read it, he showed us in the paper. And soon as that paper came out, maybe a week or two later, he was going back on bench one, going home because of a jury member came forward and said something about it. I was like, wow, that's
really rare.
Yeah, that's really rare. Yeah, it's really rare. Here's another question for you. Has new evidence in any of your cases or old cases as a district attorney ever surfaced that brought those cases back as an appeal judge?
Any cases that I was a lawyer on or a judge?
A judge.
There were several cases still kind of in the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So when a criminal case goes to a verdict, it takes a solid year for that case really to be ready on appeal because the record has to be court reporters got to take it all up. So like for the first 2 years that I was an appellate judge, there were a number of cases that I had presided over that went through the system.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a rule that, since I was a trial judge, I can't be on the appeal.
Right.
I'm recused. And so, yeah, automatic recusal because,
Wow.
just for
Right.
fairness
Right.
sake.
Right.
So as all those cases kind of went through our pipeline at the Court of Appeals, our computer system, the way it works, they don't even show up on my computer system. So I literally have no idea what's going on with those cases until the opinion is published. And that would come to me on an email with all the, when all the opinions are released, every few days when a bunch of opinions will get released, I'll see the email and think, oh, that case.
Right.
And so I'd click on it and read it. None of the cases that I was a judge on got reversed in appeals. In fact, I would kind of keep track of that when I was a trial judge.
Right.
I never had anything reversed except for probation violation.
Right.
Which is really minor. I tried real hard as a trial judge to be fair.
Yeah.
And because of my experience as a defense lawyer.
Right.
And then another thing too, not so much on your appeal.
Right.
But on Claude's appeal.
Right.
When your two cases were kind of percolating through the system, and they were on my radar screen, I went and read the appellate opinions out of the 5th District Court of Appeals.
Right.
Yours, there wasn't too much error or whatever, but Claude's case had a lot. And I read that opinion, and I was just like, wow, I can't believe that Claude's case didn't get reversed on appeal. Right. Because there was a lot of error in that case, and the judges on that panel, man, they just smashed them down one. The lawyer on Claude's case did an outstanding job of preserving the error, of making a proper objection, preserving error, and the Court of Appeals just
shut it down.
Your case, for whatever reason, I know who the lawyers were on your case, Claude's case, the trial lawyers, but for whatever reason, your lawyer, I don't know why, maybe he didn't talk to Adam Seidel and find what Adam was your first or second? Do you remember? Did Claude go to trial before you?
I did. I went to trial first. Okay. Yes.
Well, but Adam, I think Adam did more background investigation and trial preparation. Than your lawyer did.
Right. Anyway. I don't think Jerry Birdwell was a good attorney that represented me to the fullest, because the day he came and see me when I asked for a polygraph test, he denied it. Because he said you might fail it. And I'm like, you're my attorney. If I'm telling you that I didn't commit this crime and give me a polygraph test, I mean, I'm telling you the truth. You got to believe me. Right then, I knew that my attorney didn't believe that I was innocent. He actually believed that I was guilty. So he was going to do whatever, the bare minimum, to represent me in trial. And I got so mad about it, I wrote my judge, Janice Water, and I said, look, this attorney, he doesn't believe me. And that shows me that he's not going to represent me to the fullest. So they were like, no, we're not going to give you another attorney. Right before trial, she read that letter that I wrote to her in open court to let my attorney hear it. Oh, wow. And he looked at me like, why would you say that? And I'm like, this is the way you made me feel. So right then I said, oh, I'm going to get found guilty, because I know he's going to already have, he's going to already have ill will towards me. So he's not going to give me his best of his ability. How successful do you feel that your divert court has been?
Oh, divert?
Yeah.
Well, I got to give kudos to Crusoe, because he's the one that started that program.
Right.
And I presided over that for 6 years. When he retired from the bench, he passed it off to me. I did it for 6 years. I think it is a really successful program. It's, one thing, it's hard. Folks that have really serious substance abuse problems, it's hard. There's always a certain number that are going to fail. Right. And then, the ones that succeed, I think it's an outstanding program. I'm not going to take credit for it.
Right.
Crusoe deserves the credit for it.
But you kept it going.
I kept it going. Hector Garza presides over it now.
Right.
It's a great program. I wish Texas had more real treatment, quality treatment available for people.
Right.
Because folks, so many folks that have substance abuse and alcohol problems,
Right.
they just cycle in and out of the system. And,
recidivism all over again.
It diverts. What makes divert so good is that hopefully it catches people at the front end, and it really does kind of keep them out of the system.
Right.
But even the folks that already have a record, it's like they really deserve good treatment.
Right. Yeah, because it's a disease. You know what I mean? And the good thing about it is, like, I spoke to your divert court, and one guy got in trouble again. You had violated. And you gave him like a real fair sentence. You said, hey, you know how the program goes. So now you violated. So now you got to do jail time. And you gave the guy like 22 days, 25 days in jail. And like, hey, once you come out, you can't be a part of this program no more. But at least you didn't have to do a lot of time to get back out and try to do the right thing. So I really applauded you on that. That made me feel good to see a judge that was actually giving people second chances or a third chance that had already messed up a couple of times. You didn't hold that against him. You were like, hey, this is what I can do for you. You can't be in this class no more, but I can, do something for you, give you 30 days in jail to see if you get your act together, and hopefully you can come back out and do the things, do the right things that help you be successful in society again. I really liked it, and I really appreciate you for doing that for people.
Thank you.
And another question is, how can the justice system in Texas be improved on the national level?
I'm not sure this is the answer you're looking for, but something that's kind of been weighing on my mind the past year or two is somebody who's, been a part of the system ever since I was a young man.
Right.
I'm 57 now. I started as a prosecutor when I was 25. I'm really finally coming around to the notion that, we give out way too big a sentence.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure.
I guess I'm a late convert on that.
Right.
But, like property crime, murder, I guess I'm still
caught in between.
Yeah. I mean, you really did something bad.
Right.
Right. As a prosecutor, you spend time with the victims' families and you see how
torn apart they are.
How awful it is for them.
Right.
So I still, but maybe outside of disregarding murder cases, so many cases people get sometimes just crazy sentences.
Right.
It didn't happen so much. It started changing, at least in terms of what was happening in Dallas County. It did start changing with Craig Watkins. But when I was a prosecutor, jurors were a lot harsher than they are now.
Right.
And I had some cases that I prosecuted where juries would give, sentences.
Right.
And when I was a prosecutor and a defense lawyer too, I would see judges give out these crazy harsh sentences. Yeah, we need to kind of, I think, tone down some of the sentences. You don't see it, like I said, Dallas has changed. The DA's office, the whole culture's changed about, I see criminal appeals out of the other 5 counties in our Court of Appeals because I see all the records.
Right.
I see all the, things haven't changed so much in some of those other
counties. So do you see it mainly in minority cases or or it's more diverse in those counties?
I didn't really, when I'm reading an appeal, I don't know.
The color, race is right.
I tend to think though that, there is in our system, unfortunately, it's just because we're all humans and there is unconscious bias that occurs.
Right.
Or maybe it's conscious. I'm going to give people but there is unconscious bias. We know that for a fact.
Right.
So that may have something to do with it in those other counties. I don't know. But again, I don't generally know the race of people. I never know the race of people.
Right.
When the appeals come through our court. That's just not something. If I look for it, I guess I could find
see
out
it
somewhere on the record.
Right.
But generally, it's just a bunch of paperwork and